Hi, everyone. It's great to join you this morning, and thanks for spending some time with us in the sales and marketing track. My name's Scott Albro. I am the founder and CEO of a company called Topo. We are a research and advisory firm that basically helps the world's best companies grow revenues faster. And so many of you are probably familiar with Gartner Group. We're sort of like a Gartner Group. It's just we don't do anything to help the IT organization. Everything we do is designed to help sales and marketing specifically. And so our charter in life is to help our clients grow faster, but also to help them do that in a repeatable, scalable, modern way. So we have a team of analysts who are organized into a few different practice areas. We have a marketing practice. A lot of the work that we do in that marketing practice is focused on account-based. We have a sales development practice. That's that lead qualification function that sits inside the middle of the funnel. We have a sales practice, and then recently we launched a customer experience practice as well. So I want to do a quick exercise here, just a quick show of hands. Raise your right hand if you think sales does a better job than marketing inside of your company. Okay? I can see a lot of people are afraid to answer this question. Okay? Raise your left hand if you think marketing does a better job than sales. Okay, so about 50-50. Raise both hands if you kind of don't think that way. You think both groups are doing a good job. All right, great, perfect. So one of the key themes that we're going to talk about today is sales and marketing alignment. And we're going to share kind of 5 key trends that we think are happening in the world of sales and marketing today. You may ask yourself, well, why should I listen to this person? One part of our business that's really, really important is we spend a lot of time and energy every year basically studying what the world's best sales and marketing organizations are doing today. We collect a lot of data and evidence and stories and use cases around what companies are doing around overall go-to-market strategy, process-related issues, organizational design, metrics that companies are looking at, the different tactics that they use. So, for example, if you're a sales organization, you conduct discovery at the front end of your sales process. How do you conduct discovery, right? And then we also collect a lot of information on the different technologies that these companies are using. We collect data from a few hundred different sales and marketing organizations now. These are just some of the companies that we collect data from. And basically, we have this question that we're constantly asking ourselves, which is, what are the world's best sales and marketing organizations doing right now to drive outsized revenue growth? And so when we're collecting this data, we're always looking for these key trends or themes that we think are responsible for that growth. And I want to share 5 of those with you today, all right? So in a nutshell, you can kind of think of these 5 themes as, 1, there's a real increased focus on customer experience. 2, people are starting to make really intentional decisions around their go-to-market model. A lot of you have probably heard of product market fit. We think there's this thing out there now called go-to-market fit. We'll talk about that today. How many people think brand is important in B2B? Anyone? Yeah, it's really, really important. And a lot of marketing organizations and CEOs and boards are starting to think more about the brand. How many people are using a lot of data in their sales and marketing? Okay, good. There's a lot of data out there. It's actually creating this paradox, though. It makes using the data really hard. So we'll talk about that. And then finally, this idea that in sales and marketing, we really don't spend enough time talking about people. So I read this really interesting book a little while ago. It's called Boyd. It's written about a colonel in the U.S. Air Force who kind of revolutionized the U.S. Air Force. And he had this saying, which was, people, ideas, technology, in that order. And that's really important in the world of sales and marketing. Okay, so let's jump in. Customer experience today is more important than ever. And the reason it's more important than ever is because in today's economy, a lot of our products have been commoditized. So in a commoditized environment, the experience that we deliver to a customer is more important than ever. And so the number on the left here, that 7,000 number, anyone want to guess what number that is? Well, you won't be able to, but that is the number of products that exist in the MarTech category. So just inside of marketing technology, there are 7,000 different products you can look at. That's a lot of products. That drives commoditization. An abundance of products drives commoditization. The number on the right is when you go do a Google search for MarTech, this is the number of search results that you'll get, 4.7 million. That's the second thing that commoditizes markets, an abundance of information. So we live in this world now where our products are being commoditized, even in high-value technology markets like the MarTech space. So it's really, really important that we deliver excellent customer experiences. What is the customer experience? It's basically your customer's perception of their entire set of interactions with you throughout the customer journey, throughout the customer life cycle, okay? And it's the customer's perception from their sort of awareness of you, even pre-awareness, right? All the way through post-purchase, okay? So that's kind of a loose definition. It's useful, but it doesn't actually allow us to operationalize anything. For us, there are really 5 attributes to a world-class customer experience. One is it has to be relevant. So in a B2B world, this is particularly important, right? How do we design touches, experiences, information that we provide to customers that's actually relevant to what they do, all right? In B2B, we actually have the opportunity to do that. That's a little bit harder to do in B2C. The second thing that's really important is that in customer experience, we have to be responsive. We have to make sure that the experience is fast. So if you work in B2B, the number one complaint that B2B buyers have about B2B vendors is that we're too slow. So we tell the buyer, well, we're going to go write the proposal, right? And the buyer's thinking, I'm going to get this proposal in the next 24 hours, and they get the proposal 2 weeks later. That's the number one complaint. So making sure that the experience that you deliver to your buyers is fast and responsive is critically important. We also have to avoid surprises. We want to make these experiences predictable. Again, incredibly important in a B2B setting, right? So B2B buyers, it's high-stakes poker for them. It's not like buying a smoothie at Jamba Juice. It's like we're going to go spend real money on something. We have to make sure that we don't get surprised. So we want to make sure that these experiences are predictable. High value. How do we deliver value to the buyer throughout the buying process and even post-buying process, not just via the product, but via, for example, our sales organization. So there are a lot of sales organizations out there that are not good at delivering value to the buyer. And that sales process typically looks like someone fills out a form on the website, we give the demo, we either qualify the prospect in or qualify them out via the demo. That's a really bad practice, by the way, which we can talk about. And then if we qualify them in, we send them a quote or a proposal and we ask them, are you ready to buy? We delivered 0 value to the buyer when we did that. How about sharing some insights instead? How about doing discovery at the front end of your sales process so you really learn about what the buyer's priorities and issues are, and then customizing a sales process in response to what you learned during discovery? That's delivering value. That's being relevant. And then the final thing is guided. Again, this is really important in B2B markets. B2B buyers are looking for someone to take them from status quo to an outcome, to some type of change state. And they are looking for vendors to guide them through that process, right? And to guide them through that process in a predictable way. So those are some of the key attributes of a good customer experience. In the world of B2B, there are some unique best practices to focus on, some of which I've already touched on. For example, that idea of responsiveness, that idea of B2B buyers demanding real expertise and value from the vendors that they engage with. I think one thing that's really important in B2B to make note of is this interaction between human and digital. So much more so than in B2C. In B2B, we have to balance human touches with digital touches. That's really important. We also have to make sure that we are creating journeys for the market segments that we care about. Okay? So a lot of people, when they look at their target market, they say something like, well, here's my TAM, here's my total available market. that's kind of a loose term, right? Like that's a concept that might be interesting in your board of directors. It doesn't help you do anything operationally in your sales and marketing organization. What is much more useful is to say, here's my ideal customer profile. Like this is a canonical definition that tells me about the types of accounts that I am going to go after as a sales and marketing organization. Then I'm going to segment those accounts into A accounts, B accounts, and C accounts. The customer experience that I deliver to my A accounts should be really, really different than the customer experience that I deliver to my C accounts, okay? We don't have time to get into what all that means, but it's important. If you want to talk about it later, I'll stick around. So that's customer experience. Second thing is that go-to-market fit is the foundation of fast revenue growth. What do I mean by go-to-market fit? Well, let's use two examples, right? So we have go-to-market models that tend to be more volume and velocity in nature. I get a lot of inbound leads on my website. I follow up with them very quickly. I put them into a demo. I send them a quote, and hopefully some of them agree to the quote. That's like a volume and velocity model. Account-based is I go outbound. I've got this target set of accounts that are worth a lot of money to me, and I target them, and I spend a lot of time and effort and money trying to engage those specific accounts, those 1,000 accounts, for example. So determining what model should be your dominant model is really, really important. There are a few different variables that you can look at to determine which model's right for you. Those are listed at the bottom of this slide. One obvious one is, well, what's the shape of my target market? Is it broad? Am I targeting the 30 million small businesses in North America? Or am I targeting the Fortune 500? Well, if you're targeting 30 million small businesses, you need to be in the volume and velocity game. If you're targeting the Fortune 500, you need to be in the account-based game. Second variable you can look at is what are the economics of my business? And a good proxy for that is what is my average annual contract value, or what is my customer lifetime value? If I'm low, if I'm selling a $500 a month product, I better be in that volume and velocity game. If I'm high, we have clients who literally their average ACVs are in 8 figures. They're in that account-based game, right? And then the final thing that you can look at to make this determination, there are other variables you can. These are the 3 big ones, is the complexity of what you offer the buyer. How complex is your product? Here's a good proxy for determining that one. Can I put someone into a real free trial during the buying process? There are a lot of companies who have free trials on their websites. They're not self-service trials. They're not even trials. They're kind of demos, right? So can I put someone into a real trial or not, right? If you can put someone into a real trial, then you can play that volume and velocity game. If you can't, you better think about account-based, okay? So an important distinction to understand is what's the difference between volume and velocity versus account-based. So you can see over here, this is how we think about these go-to-market models. We look at target market, right? A good distinction to make there is this notion of the ICP that I talked about earlier, the ideal customer profile. So if you can come up with an ideal customer profile that says something like, we target oil and gas companies with more than 1,000 employees, headquartered in North America, and they have to be running something on AWS. That's our ideal customer profile, okay? Process, what does your process look like? So volume and velocity models, your process looks like a traditional demand gen model, right? Marketing's going to go generate a bunch of marketing qualified leads. They're going to hand those to sales development. Sales development is going to generate an SQL. They're going to hand that to sales. In that model, marketing says, I'm sort of dumb when I generate that MQL. Account-based, everyone lines up and targets a metric that we call target account pipeline. Marketing, sales development, sales, CS, even the executives all sign up to make a contribution to generate more pipeline against the target account list. Those 500 oil and gas companies with more than 1,000 employees. That's really different, right? The organization, same thing. All hands on deck and account-based versus we do these kind of marketing product-centric go-to-market models. The tactics that we use. Account-based is not about, hey, I syndicate a bunch of white papers online and generate 500 leads. Account-based is sales development and marketing are going to work together with high-value offers such as custom events that we might host to put 10 CIOs in the Four Seasons in New York City from those oil and gas companies. Really, really different. And then finally, the metrics we kind of talked about. In a volume and velocity world, you're more focused on MQLs. How many MQLs am I generating? In an account-based world, you're focused on the amount of pipeline that you're generating against your target account list. So these are two really different things. Now, one huge caveat to this distinction between account-based and volume and velocity and what should be your dominant go-to-market model. You have to beware as you grow as an organization of what we call the either-or trap. So a lot of companies get trapped. They basically say, well, we get to this certain point in growth. I grew up as volume and velocity. That's all I'm going to do. I'm never going to do account-based. As you get bigger, you need to do both. And the best companies in the world do both. So if you think about growing along two different axes, one axis is, can I grow my average deal size? Can I grow ACV and LTV? And then the other axis is, can I grow the number of customers or users that I have? Breakout companies figure out how to grow along both axes. And there are two really compelling stories here. There are more than two, actually, but two that I think of a lot. Twilio is an example. How many people know Twilio? Okay, great. So they started out basically selling to developers. Twilio now has over 2 million developers using its product. And they spent a lot of time kind of seeding the market with this developer-centric model. They were very successful with it. Twilio now, though, having been so successful with that, they're really focused on the monetization ladder. So how do we go? We've got 50 developers at Walmart using the API now. How do we go monetize Walmart? Okay? ServiceNow is another example. They started on the opposite axis. They started up the monetization ladder, right? Like big deals with a small number of customers. Now, if you look at ServiceNow, they're not only trying to expand the number of accounts that they're doing business with, they're trying to really aggressively expand the number of users inside of each account. These are great. Go look at the multiples of these two companies. They have higher multiple, not just high multiples, like high SaaS multiples, right? And the reason they do is they figured out how to grow along both these axes. So that's the second big trend. Third big trend is the brand. Your brand in B2B is more important than ever. And look, we can measure this stuff, right? So you can see that companies with strong brands outperform the S&P 500 by a lot, right? So this is sort of the stock performance of the world's 100 most valuable brands. And so that's interesting, but like, why does that happen, right? Well, in B2B in particular, and even in consumer markets, the old school way of thinking has been, look, the brand really helps me during the awareness part of the purchasing process, right? Like if you break the purchasing process into awareness, consideration, purchase, and then someone's a customer, they're using the product or whatever, we all tend to think of the brand as, well, it helps me with awareness, right? Like the customer has a clear perception in their mind of what I do, for example. That's an example of a brand benefit. I'm differentiated from the competition during the awareness phase. That's an example of a brand benefit. Well, it turns out the brand benefits you throughout the purchase process. And let me just pick a couple of examples here. So one example is, how many people would love to just be on the de facto short list of any buyer consider? Like, we'd all love that, right? If the buyer just thought, you're automatic, I haven't even looked at your product, I'm just putting you on the short list of products that we're going to consider. That'd be pretty cool, right? That's why we all worry about the Gartner Magic Quadrant, right? That's a branding exercise, right? That's why Salesforce ends up on the short list of every CRM consideration set. It is about the brand, okay? Another example of this is price integrity and negotiating power. Companies that have strong brands can protect their price. Buyers are more reluctant to negotiate with those companies. They just are. They're believers. They get that they're going to do business with Salesforce. They negotiate less. So, and then the final example I'd share here is a really, really powerful one, which is around customer advocacy. And that customer advocacy can be external, right? I'm using this product and I know my buddy down here is interested in using a similar type of product. I will go tell that person to use this product if the product has a strong brand associated with it. And even internal referrals, right? This product is being used in this data center at AT&T. The person who runs that data center likes the product, likes the brand. They're more likely to make an internal referral to another data center at AT&T. So huge, huge benefits around brand. We have a lot of clients. Most of our clients are B2B technology companies. We have a lot of clients who ask us, well, how do I build a big brand in B2B, right? Like, I just don't get it. I get it in consumer, but I don't get it in B2B. When we talk to B2B buyers about what they want from a brand, I call it the 3 C's, right? So they have confidence in you. The buyer says, I believe what you say, right? They believe that you are competent as well, right? So competence is the second thing. I believe you have the skills to do what you say. And then finally, they believe that you're committed, commitment. I believe that you are acting on my behalf. Not just your behalf, but my behalf. Look, you can think about colors and what your website looks like and your vision statement. All those things are important to your brand. But for our clients, when they think about brand, we recommend that they start here. Can you check the boxes? Can you intentionally answer these questions as yeses, right? They have confidence in you, they believe you're competent, and they believe that you're committed. If you can answer those 3 questions, you're well on the way to having a great B2B brand. Easier said than done, right? You got to back that stuff up, okay? So then the fourth thing is data paradox. So there's a lot of data available to us in the world of sales and marketing right now. I mean, I think we all know that, right? Like, there's just way more data available to us today than there was even last year, right? And, we used to look at internal data, right? And an example of internal data would be like, we're running this paid search campaign on Google. I get a bunch of click-throughs to this landing page that exists on my website. The conversion rate on that landing page is 2.45%. That's internal data. It's interesting, right? A couple years ago, we started to realize, well, we can get real data about our customers, external data. So intent data is an example of that. We don't have time to get into that, but if you're interested in a really interesting trend in the world of data, go look up intent data. Super, super powerful. Now we're getting into the world where we have these emerging data sets that we look at. One of the hottest trends in sales technology right now is basically recording every sales call. Super hot trend. Well, guess what that does? It gives us even more data. So we just have a ton of data available to us, right? So we've gone way up on the quantity spectrum. The problem with that is we've gone down on the quality spectrum. It's not that the data is lower quality. In fact, the data itself is usually higher quality. The problem is we're just having a tough time using it, right? So like its usefulness has dropped. And so when we think about sort of fixing this paradox that we have in the world of data, we tend to think of it around 3 different points in a framework. One is the data itself, right? So we used to have, for example, data that was really siloed. Can I get visibility into, for example, the entire customer experience, what we talked about earlier? That's good, right? The second thing we look at is like the insights that we get from the data. Again, traditionally, internal data, it's like, well, the landing page converted at this rate. Interesting, useful, yes, but a lot less useful than like really knowing what your customer's up to. Financial services industry, they have this term called Know Your Customer, KYC. It's actually a compliance term, right? It's designed to stop like money laundering and that type of stuff. I actually think it's really applicable to like all marketing, not in a compliance sense, but just like this obsession with like knowing your customer. There's data available to us that allows us to do that. And then finally, the big thing that's happening right now in the world of data is what we call activation. We have a great group of panelists later in the session this morning. One of the panelists is from a company called Engagio. They're, for example, doing a lot of great work to solve this data activation problem, which is we have a ton of data, what do we do with it? Well, wouldn't it be cool if we could run programmatic campaigns based on our data, right? Like I could kick off a marketing campaign, an ad campaign that's orchestrated with a bunch of outbound prospecting touches that a group of SDRs do. And the data tells me when and where to do that, what the messaging should look like, what the offers should look like. So that's an interesting three-point framework. Data, as I mentioned, data activation is really the holy grail here. So we have a few minutes left, and I want to make sure that we hit on this last point, the fifth point that we talked about, which is people, ideas, technology, in that order. And I just think this is a really powerful statement. Like, we do not spend enough time talking about people, teams, and culture in the world of sales and marketing. We just don't. And one of the reasons we don't is like we don't realize the value of the people inside of our sales and marketing organization. Again, this is something that can be measured, right? When you look at the Fortune 100 best companies to work for and plot those companies' stock performance against, in this case, the Russell 3000 over the last several years, these companies grossly outperform most major stock indices, right? So this isn't just like, you know, HR, kumbaya type stuff. This is real performance, like real metrics. I think some people do understand that, the impact that having high quality people, high quality teams can have on a business. I think a lot of us have lacked a framework to think about that in a sales and marketing organization. And so at Topo, we think about a few things. You can kind of think of like the 5 rectangles on the top as like, you know, strategy and structure and org design and so forth. So we want to have strong leadership in place. We want to make sure we all have a shared purpose. One cool thing about sales and marketing is we're able to have a shared purpose in sales and marketing much more easily than other functions are. Like our shared purpose is we got to hit the number and we got to delight our customers. And if we can't agree on that, we got bigger problems, right? So that part's easy. Values. When we talk to sales and marketing employees, look, working in sales and marketing, the cool thing about sales and marketing, we can measure everything. For a lot of employees, that's tough, right? Like, we're held incredibly accountable in the world of sales and marketing. So we have to make sure we have a sense of shared values. Sales and marketing employees, they really value trust and open communication. We set our goals, we design our organization around those goals, and then we get into the business of how do I hire the right people, how do I onboard them, how do I enable them, and how do I advance them through the organization. By the way, hopefully back up into a leadership role where they can reinforce my shared purpose, my values, my goals, etc. Okay? This stuff down here on the bottom is so important in the world of sales and marketing today. How you hire the right people, onboard them, enable them, and advance them. So we're out of time. Those are our 5 key things that we think are happening in sales and marketing right now. Customer experience, figuring out what your go-to-market fit is, sort of similar to product market fit, the power of brand in B2B, this data paradox, and then this idea that you put people first. So I'll hang out in the back for a little bit if anyone has any questions, but thanks everyone for joining me today.